Take two. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Directors meeting at Tweeden Haven Airport to order. First order of business is the minutes for the July 17, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Motion and a second. I got a second. Any comments, questions, changes, suggested changes? Anyone online? No, Ken, you okay with them?
Go.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item 2, Chairman's report. This will be brief. The only thing I'm going to report out in my second to last official capacity is the recommendation to the full board for the selection of bond counsel issuers services. For those who may not recall or are first hearing it, we went out for RFP earlier, I think it was late spring, and we had 4 respondents. Those 4 respondents were whittled down to 2. The committee that worked on that were Brett Simon, Tom Rafter, myself, and Robert Reed. We whittled that down to 2, McCarter and English, and Oric. McCarter English, not English, I'm sorry. And Oric, which had about 4 other names at the end of it, that law firm like most of them do. And we took the opportunity to interview each of them individually, prepared the same list of questions for both of the respondents, walked through that process, and they were very close. The differential largely came down to cost, hourly billing rates, as well as I think there was some discernment between their used to handling big issuances, JFK, LaGuardia Airport, that was Oric, and McCarter English had more experience in the spot, in our market spot. So those two factors combined to have the selection committee recommend to the executive committee. That was last week. We met and the executive committee endorsed the idea that we select McCarter English and begin the contract negotiations with them, scope of work, etc. So it comes from, as I said, the executive committee unanimously recommended that out to the full board. So before I put that in a form of a motion, are there any questions or comments about the process, the selection, or either of the firms? Hearing none. Geez, I guess I covered it. Okay, is there a motion to approve entering into negotiations with McCarter English to develop a contract, scope of work, and terms and conditions, as well as final rates? Is there a motion to do so? Thank you, David. Any second? Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
Will we get to look at that scope of work?
Yes, we'll be happy to share that with you.
And it'll have to come back to the board
for approval.
Okay.
All right, let me try your minds. Those online? That looks unanimous online. And those in the room? Aye. That motion carries unanimously. As I said, that was the second to last piece of business. As most of you probably are aware at this point, my service to this board is coming to an end, and it is sort of bittersweet for me. And I have prepared a brief statement, which I think I may be entitled to after serving 9 years on the board. It's hard to believe that it's been 9 years since my first meeting on the Tweed board, where one of my first votes was to sue the state of Connecticut over legislation restricting the length of the runway. Little did I know that in doing so, we were laying the groundwork for what has become nothing short of an amazing turnaround for the airport. In 2019, I volunteered to be the interim executive director, a role that I thought would last a couple of months, not the 8 months it took to entice now comptroller Sean Scanlon to take the role as executive director. During that time, I was introduced to the Avport CEO, Jorge Roberts, who was very passionate about the possibility of a public-private partnership, now realized. We were fortunate that soon after the successful negotiation of that partnership, Belo Airlines, or just before, I'm sorry, the the negotiation took a little longer than Avello's showing up. Avello's business model was a perfect match for a small regional airport. And today they fly nonstop to over 26 locations, a far cry from the Philadelphia only location by a prior carrier less than 3 years ago. Today's employment report in your packet shows that we've reached over 500,000 employments in the 12-month period ended May of 2024, a far cry from the mid 30,000 numbers a few short years ago. I would like to acknowledge the support I received from Jorge Roberts and the entire Avports team. In all my roles, Jeremy Nielsen and Felipe Suriel have been there for me, and more recently, Michael Jones. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Andrew King for his support in helping me and the authority work through so many public relations challenges and opportunities. I am proud to have served alongside so many committed and passionate board members, including longtime Chairman John Picard, who was instrumental in securing the 43-year agreement with Avports and the Haven LLC, and is filling the seat that I am vacating. I leave grateful for the opportunity to serve, proud of what we have accomplished, and look forward to many more great things happening at Tweed New Haven Airport. Thank you, and I appreciate I literally appreciate the ability to work with all of you. This has been one of the more rewarding experiences of my professional life. So thank you all for that opportunity. So,
Thank you, Matt.
Item 3, election of officers, I had asked Robert to put together a nominating committee, and I believe Serena, Jesse, and Linda filled out that committee and came back with a recommended slate. And that slate, either one of you want to talk about that, or should I think I know what it is. It's Robert Reed as chair, John Picard as vice chair, Serena as treasurer, and Linda as the secretary. Both Linda and Serena are continuing in the roles that they've been performing for some time now. That recommendation came to the executive committee, and the executive committee endorsed that last week as well. If someone want to put that slate forward as a motion for nomination to those offices.
I'd like to make the motion to move that slate in its entirety.
Thank you, Jesse. Is there a second? Second. All right. Robert's Rules calls for, are there any other nominations for any of those seats? Ken?
There is, Matt. May I?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to nominate Mark Scussel as vice chairman. And let me give you my thoughts in regards to that. John Picard is a great guy. I've known him for almost as long as I've known you, Matt. Known you for 30 years plus. I thank you for your service to the board. We've agreed to disagree, but we've always done it in a professional way. I've known John as his years as mayor of West Haven, a good man. He's a friend, and this is not to his detriment. But in light of the way the airport is supposedly moving, in light of the possibility of East Haven taking on more responsibility, in my heart, I believe that East Haven should have a higher position in regards to the officer's position. And also in light of the unequal representation on the board, with East Haven only having 5 votes as opposed to several from the New Haven side, I think it's only fair and honest, and that East Haven have have the position as vice chairman to voice stronger concerns in regards to anything that may happen in East Haven. It's a matter of fairness. It's not a matter of personality. It's just a matter of fairness and democracy and honesty. So in that light, I nominate Mark Scussel as vice chair of the Tweed New Haven Airport Authority.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
That.
Thank you, Ray. All right, given that we have a challenge to the slate, we will take the nominations individually. Is there a nomination for Linda Hennessy for secretary?
Can't talk Texaco?
Is there?
What about it?
We'll take them sequentially. So the first one we're going to start with is the secretary. Is there a nomination for Linda Hennessy for the secretary?
I have no clue. Thanks.
I nominate Linda Hennessy, Carlos Azaguirre.
And
Second.
And second, Vice Marina. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Any other nominations for secretary? Any other nominations for secretary? Hearing none, let me try your minds. Those in favor of Linda Hennessy, those on Zoom first, please, raise your hand or whatever, or say aye.
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries, I believe unanimously. Is there a
That's an aye
nomination?
for me.
Pardon me?
That's an aye.
That's an aye. Thank you. All right, I am not voting, as I think you folks realize. But, is there a nomination? Is anyone willing to nominate Serena Nielsen Earl?
I don't know.
Linda, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
David, thank you. Any other nominations for treasurer? Any other nominations for treasurer? Any other nominations for treasurer? Hearing none, let's call the question. Those in favor of Serena, signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Those in the room?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Is there a nomination for John Picard for vice president?
Nomination. Yes.
Rich, and second, David White, thank you. Other nominations?
I nominated Mark Scussel earlier. Is that no
Right, yeah,
longer?
we have to go through this process this way, Kenny, so,
All right, go ahead.
is there a second, Ray?
There was a second already on the table. I don't know we were doing it again. My bad.
No, it wasn't your bad, just we have to go back and do them sequentially, so it has to be done all over again. Okay, we have, are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor of John Picard as vice president, signify by raising your hand or saying aye. On screen.
Aye.
Aye.
2, 3, 5. Those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries. Is there a nomination of Robert Reed for chairman of the Tweed Haven Board, Tweed Haven Airport Authority Board? Is there a nomination?
So moved.
I'd like to.
There we go. I have a second from one of those 2 or 3. that were on the line. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed, and let's call the vote. All those in favor of Robert Reed as chair, online, please.
Aye.
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 Those in the room? Aye. You can vote for yourself. No Catholic school modesty here, let me tell you.
Too late for that.
That motion carries. Robert, congratulations. John, congratulations. Serena, congratulations.
Thank you all.
Linda, congratulations.
Thank you.
And it has been my pleasure, once again, to work closely with you folks, and I won't be going far.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for the vote and confidence, everyone online and in the room. Executive Director's report.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Matt for his service and dedication to the authority and its community. It was great working with you.
We're not.
Glad you filled in.
That's right.
Executive Director.
That's right.
What I'd like to do is first begin with the action items from last month's board meeting, and I'm going to try to follow forward with that format going forward for the prior month's action items. First on the agenda was a rescheduling air traffic control meeting. That has been rescheduled for October 1st. We don't have an exact time yet, but it will be held at the Nathan Hale School. And I'd like to thank Alder Sal DeCola for coordinating the location and that meeting itself. Second item was providing evidence of updated budget and note the economic impact analysis to Mr. Scussel. That was transmitted to Mark July 19th. I think you got the
I agree.
actuals today. So.
Closed.
And third was to work to secure, someone discussed the permit situation at the board meeting regarding the temporary trailers. I think that will be addressed later. I'll do that now.
I'll do it right now. Sure.
Okay.
So just to provide a little context on the temporary trailer permits, it's a two-step process. We've worked with Newman Architects in the city on the temporary trailer permit application that went through the city and then subsequently went to the state building official. And then also as part of the second part of that process is to work with the city on the floodplain variance. That application went in on this past Friday into the city and will be under technical review and then potentially goes to the city planning commission. You know, once that is resolved, then both of those are back under consideration by the state building official, and they'll make that final determination. So that's just kind of the clarity and the process around it, and just follow the process. So currently the floodplain variance is under review by the city, and potentially goes to the city planning commission, you know, and then that goes back to the state building official. So just that's the process, and happy to answer any questions.
You have a timeline associated with all those decision points?
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, this is Carlos Izaguirre. Do you, sorry, Mike, to jump in. I just want to jump in on behalf of the city of New Haven, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure.
So this, to Mr. Jones's point, the application was submitted to City Plan last week. We've been the city's been working with Tweed and Avports for several months on coming into compliance here, and so we expect that review to be heard at the September City Plan Commission meeting, Commissioner Degliari, and that would be, I think it's usually the third Wednesday of the month, but we can make sure that sometimes it moves around based on calendar, so we'll just make sure that the board is aware. And then to Mr. Jones's point, it will then head the city plan item will then head up to the state with the permit to the state building official shortly thereafter.
Anything additional, Mike? No. Great. Any other
Matt,
questions?
Robert?
Ken?
Yeah. So this is still set, the permits are still set to expire in November, correct? As you're moving forward. Is that correct?
21st, I believe, right?
Yes.
And are there no other applications that need to be filed, DEP, East Haven, DOT, or USACE? Are there any other, or is that something that the State Building Commission or office handles, or do we handle that?
Right.
So just to be clear, it follows the same process it did 3 years ago, and this is the same process, so it'll just follow that, and so none of those other organizations are part of this process.
Okay. And the only variances that need to be approved are from the New Haven ZBA, is that correct?
The CPC, right?
Is that correct?
It's actually from Commissioner Degliari. It's actually from the city
Call me
plan
Ken.
commission.
Don't, you know, that's my dad. Just call me Ken.
Commissioner Ken.
Listen, I've been called worse. Ken is fine.
We will no, that will actually go in front of the city plan commission, despite the fact that you may be the term variance may be making you think it's Board of Zoning. In this case, this would be heard by the city plan commission.
Yeah. All right. And so I just want to move forward with this. I don't want to look to the past, as I've been hearing on TV the last few days. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward. Okay. You know what I'm talking about. So, but I did ask Andrew last week to show me the documents where this was brought forward to the board some time ago. And, you know, I'm from Missouri, so show me. I haven't seen them yet. And that's inappropriate as far as I'm concerned.
Sorry, I thought we resolved that in the meeting, but I'm happy to pull those up.
Well, you told me you were going to send me the documents, and I didn't get them.
Sure.
So don't tell me you're going to do something and don't do it. Period.
I agree. Yeah.
That's my mantra for my whole life.
Yeah. I'll send you the.
Clear?
I'll pull up the previous.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, fine. Move on. Let's not go back.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Any other questions for Michael? All right, Tom.
Okay, next on my report, the PFC application, we're continuing the process, and as I mentioned in the last meeting, user consultation meeting was held on August 2nd. Draft application was made available to the public and the airline serving the airport on July 1st. Comments on the draft application are due September 2nd, and the complete application will be submitted to the FAA for review on or about October 1st. Anticipate PFC application approval December of 20, with anticipated collection beginning in February of 25.
Comments from who, Tom? Is that just out there for the
The
public
public,
comment?
yeah, that's
Okay.
open to the public, yes.
Okay.
I'd also, we have another item here. I'd like to ask the board to authorize the chair to execute a grant agreement. We've been put on notice by FAA that we'll be receiving a grant agreement for the next phase of the sound insulation program in the amount of approximately $539,910. That should come into us early September, and they gave us a heads up because they need a quick turn. This has often happened with their deadlines. So we need authorization for the chair to execute that agreement for us to receive the money. We got to turn it around within 24 to 36 hours, I believe, back to FAA. So I'd like to indulge the chair, ask the board for approval to allow the chair to execute that agreement. I don't know if we need a formal vote or.
I think we need a formal vote for that. So with that said, we're going to ask for a formal vote on on Tom's request to execute against that grant agreement when it comes in. I'll try those online. All in favor?
You asked for a motion, Mr. Chair?
Excuse me, a motion. I'm saying, have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Okay, with that said, I'll ask for the vote. Those online, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those in the room. Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes. Tom?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Last Thursday, we had the FAA Regional Administrator and her staff visit Tweed for a tour and attendance at the annual Runway Safety Action Team meeting. It was a great opportunity to update her on Tweed development and some of the concerns, and I'd like to thank Avports for their support in hosting them. Again, it was an opportunity to showcase the airport and identify the capital needs so that the administrator can take that back when she has to look to try to get discretionary funds both from the region as well as nationally where we compete. Our CIP meeting, we're in the process of setting that up with the FAA. It will take place either in September, October, or waiting for a date from FAA. The economic impact analysis is moving along. They make contacts on board members, and we anticipate an update from them at the next board meeting. Another note, I will be attending the National Airports Conference September 21 to 24. And as it relates to air service announcements, as the board's aware, on August 13th, Avelo announced new nonstop service to New Orleans, and Breeze announced that they'll begin flying from Tweed this December. Breeze will initially serve 4 destinations and then up to 10 in February. This type of air service development is a major announcement for any size airport, but especially for a small hub like ourselves. It's also important to note that Breeze and Avelo announcements were up to the airline to make public, not the airport. It's hard to overstate how serious an announcement like this is or how competitive the industry can be. In fact, I'm personally aware of an airline that not just canceled a press announcement, but also the entire service altogether when an airport had leaked the information out too early. So it's critical that they hold that very close to the vest. Additionally, under our agreement with Avports, they're responsible for air service development. And as such, they're mindful that the airport sponsor must comply with FAA grant assurances that essentially must accommodate new entry service. So I'd like to thank you for your understanding as we mark another win for Tweed in the region, in our state, and return to service by more than one airline for the first time since 2007. In just a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Shelby for an air service development update. But first, the statistics that are in your packet for May, you'll see that we're up 25% in passengers over last May, and year-to-date the employments were up by 8% for a 12-month total of 500,078. That's very significant for an airport of our size. That concludes my report. I would like, if you don't mind, I would continue to turn it over to Matt Shelby for an air service update.
Have questions? Yeah, so expanded service, right? Is Matt or is Jeremy going to cover how we expect to support that? You know, with all the parking and management of people coming in and out of the airport.
Jeremy will cover some of that. If you want details, we'll try to provide it. But essentially, Breeze is going to fill in the valleys. So where there's openings, they're going to be operating those flights then. At the press announcement, they did indicate that their first flight won't be until 7 or 7:30 in the morning. and they will operate within the hours that, are in the ordinance for noise. Their aircraft that they're operating is A220, which is much quieter in generation. But Jeremy's been working, feverishly to accommodate the functionality of it, from ticketing to TSA, to the gate use, to the ramp, to the ground service equipment, to parking. All those things are being looked at.
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait till Jeremy talks then.
I have a question. How far could their Airbus 220 fly off at 5,600? They make like Denver or some cities that these aircraft can't do.
Ask the person behind. I was going to say. I was looking at the 195s, and then I heard it was an A220. I was like, okay. So.
I personally captained the flight from John Wayne to Norfolk. So,
Excuse me, could you guys speak up a little, because I could hardly hear you?
The question was, how far could the Breeze A220 go off of our runway? And Tony Laurenti, who is a pilot that operates that same type aircraft, indicated that you've flown from John Wayne to Norfolk, and John Wayne's runway is 5,700 feet.
So we could potentially do New Haven, Las Vegas, New Haven, Denver.
No, I can't answer for the airline.
No, I know.
The aircraft has that capability. But again, I think there's other, things that come into play as well. Too. A lot of variables. The aircraft is capable of it, obviously.
That was my question.
Any other questions? Any other questions for Tom? Rich?
Yeah, Tommy, you may have said this and I may have just missed it or should know this, but is there any update on the appeal of the finding of no significant impact? Or is that just still moving through the process?
Was that on the appeal of the
appeal?
PA, the finding of no significant impact? I believe, is online somewhere, but it's still ongoing, and there are, I think, briefs have been filed. There's some activity taking place, I think, in September, and it may get heard as early by the end of the year. I'm not sure, but Hugh Mankey, I don't know if he's if Hugh.
Is Hugh online?
No, it doesn't look like it.
I don't think Hugh is here.
He may be in the other side.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's the best of my knowledge.
No, that's not it. Hello? Yeah, Tom, tell me how the cost of advancing the planning processes are being met.
I'm sorry?
The planning process moving forward with our potential project. How are the costs advancing in that planning process?
How are the costs being addressed?
Advancing. Additional cost? Are you meeting, are you staying within the budget?
Having another airline here, I think is what he's getting at, to the authority.
Well, okay, the planning for another airline coming in is different from capital planning. One's operation, and that is being done through Avports, and it's in their budget. I think we're very fortunate to have somebody that can make the change and accommodate by adding people as quickly as they can. I know operating as a government entity before an airport, it was difficult. I'd have to go back to the board and ask for budget. They're doing it within their budget and handling it appropriately. So it's the cost for operational planning and changes. Avports is taking care of that.
I'm not talking about Breeze Airlines. I'm talking about the new terminal project.
Oh, so you're talking about capital. That's why I was.
Yeah,
that's why
I'm sorry.
So that planning, in fact, we have one of their consultants here tonight with us. That planning is being advanced and paid for by Avports, some of which may be reimbursable under FAA or PFC, but there is a significant portion that the company is paying for themselves.
And in regards to grants and PFCs, and would that be a liability if the project doesn't move forward? Receiving?
Not necessarily. The liability really comes in if the airport were ever to close, let's say. That's when we're liable to pay back and have to pay back certain things. If
A
you were-
total closure of Tweed, you're saying?
Yeah, if the board voted to close Tweed, we would end up
Okay.
paying back the federal government significant.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Ray?
Tom, Rich was asking about the Fonzie before, and I'm just trying to connect the dots on a lot of the stuff that came out of the Fonzie, and I know it's under appeal right now. But a lot of the findings were based off of the efficiency with the longer runway and getting planes more to capacity. I'm just questioning now with another airline coming in and filling in those gaps, as you mentioned, will it have any effect on the environmental traffic and all the other things that, you know, they were asked to look into? And, you know, obviously if you're, they were basing it off of one model and this model is somewhat changing.
But another way to look at that, Ray, is essentially what is happening is by Breeze coming in, they're just doing what Avello may have done in the future. So it's being advanced a little bit quicker. But my understanding is it's all still within the parameters of the EA. If not, the FAA would have, you know, weigh in and tell us, you know, you're going outside that and that's a major change.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess, yeah, to follow that up, sorry. How does that get communicate to the FAA? Or are they're just kind of monitoring what's going on here, so they'll come back and say, hey, you know.
They were here. I mean, they sat right there with the
Yeah.
administrator and her staff. And we gave them the information, we gave them the handout. It was, you know, I'm trying to remember if that was after the Breeze announcement. Yeah.
So was that,
Yeah, it was the Thursday after.
so was there any direct questions as to how that might impact their
The
finding or?
No, but well,
I mean, no one's perfect, so if somebody doesn't ask that question.
no, we have weekly calls with FAA and they have various representatives on there. One is the environmental individual, and we keep them up to date on what's going on. And if they think something's, you know, hey, that's outside the EA, they're gonna tell us and let us know. So we communicated to them what, you know, the traffic updates are.
Any other questions? Any other questions? All right, seeing none, you want to move over to Matt?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Matt Shelby. And Matt, I'm not exactly sure your title, but he handles air service development for Avports. I've met with Matt a few times. He's very intelligent, very knowledgeable about the industry, and he's going to give us a little update on air service development. And Matt, take it away.
Yep. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Can you guys all hear me okay? Just want to do a sound check first. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah. Thanks for the handoff there. So Matt Shelby, I'm the Chief Development Officer at Avports, but you know, essentially one of those roles is to lead air service development updates for airports where we have that responsibility. You know, Tweed being one of those. But prior to my arrival here, I led the group, you know, at the airline with whom airlines contracted for both Alaska and United. So normally I was on the other side of this equation, you know, fielding inquiries from airports that sort of wanted our service. And a couple of years ago, you know, I came to work for airports, you know, and we maintain, you know, relationships with all of the domestic airlines and a few internationals, again, promoting, updating them just about the capacity of the airport and in general what's happening at airports where we have that responsibility. And I'll talk just a little bit about air service, a little bit about the history of air service at Tweed, a little bit about the federal requirements that come into play. You know, Tom touched on the confidentiality. You know, I think he made a very good point. But you know, just to tell you how sensitive it is, and I consider, you know, us to have great relationships with airlines. You know, we didn't even know the destinations that Breeze was going to until the day they announced it. So all of the discussions with them previously had just been sort of, you know, arrivals, departures, and ground times. But again, we'll talk a little bit about the confidentiality there, a little bit about the growth, you know, in the market, and then we'll leave some time for some questions. And I know there's been sort of a lot of excitement surrounding Breeze. someone touched on the aircraft that they operate. I mean, it's a rocket ship. I think someone said it can do transcon off short runways on both ends. It's not an understatement. It is probably the most sophisticated aircraft that's out there right now for regional flying, and we are lucky to get them and be able to fit them in sort of the Avelo valleys at New Haven. So I'm going to share a little bit of a presentation I assembled here just to kind of guide us. But again, I want the discussion. I heard you guys were not shy about asking questions. So, to the extent there are questions that come up, please feel free to share them.
That's an understatement.
That's okay. That's all right. We welcome them.
Okay.
So, the New Haven catchment area it's about 1.9 million population, but there's almost 6,500 passengers every day that come out of that light blue area in the middle there. And historically, they were traveling to one of those other blue areas or one of the red areas to get their air service. And I think that's why, we saw the opportunity here. Several folks, at various government agencies saw the opportunity here. One of the charges of the FAA and DOT is to kind of make sure everybody's got good access to air service. When you kind of look at that map, everybody was kind of traveling outside of their little blue area in order to get service. So, the opportunity, was and continues to be there for the population.
Matt, if I can just interrupt you, for those who aren't aware, PDU stands for passengers daily each way.
How far over does the light blue Haven line go to?
I think we usually draw it between 25 and 35 miles from the center, but sometimes we'll take into consideration the edges of a county. I can get the exact mileage for you there.
Yeah, no, because Tom and I had a conversation, last week, I think it was. You were asking me about, because I work at Electric Boat, which is in New London. He was asking me what, my colleagues do for air travel. First of all, we're not allowed, because we're a government contractor, to take a low-cost carrier, so we can't fly any of these. But secondly, what I normally do, because I live over here in East Haven, is I'll go to Hartford or I'll go to Westchester. But most of my colleagues live between New London and Rhode Island, or in Rhode Island. So a lot of them will take TF Green. So just to kind of give everybody a point of view of, at least from my perspective of traveling for business, what we do. I just curious where that light blue line was.
We'll get that number for you, and hopefully one day soon we can change where you have to go for travel. Quite frankly, so just a little recap here, and this is, and again, some of you are well aware of this. Just to the extent there are new faces in the room, I'll kind of go through some things here that are a little historical. In 23, New Haven handled about 450,000 passengers. We're going to handle north of 600 this year, and that'll be well north of 1 million in 10 years. It all started sort of with Avelo announcing, what they were going to do in 21. By 23, they had served 18 routes, and by the end of 24, that's going to be, probably 27 now. But the crazy thing about it is that even with all of that growth, we're still only capturing about 16% of the people traveling out of that blue area. So 84% of those folks are still driving to one of those other nearby airports to get their air service. And our goal with the new terminal, frankly, is to change that. And we got a lot of room to grow. That 16 can be quite a bit higher, and frankly, we think it will be. Just historically, I think some of you guys touched on it already. We were trending 30,000. And just to give you an idea of what 30,000 passengers is per year, that's less than a flight a day on average, or it's an average of a really small aircraft per day. But it's less than the average of one mainline, regular 737 a day. You look at what happened in sort of 21, 22, 23. That number is kind of like what we like to see with our investments, but usually in my case it's not the case. Is it's a hockey stick moving up and to the right. And, we think that will only continue, especially once we're, able to add capacity. We'll talk a little bit about Avelo and Breeze and how that all came about here in just a minute, but we've got an excellent trajectory here, and it's been buoyed by support from folks like yourselves. So, air service is kind of the strategic way that we manage our relationships with the airline. They do a lot of this in-house, but, we provide them market analysis, new businesses moving to the area, benefits of living in the area, what the traveler is doing. We try to make sure they've got all of that at the ready. A lot of information they get from the federal government. So even though certain airlines don't have to report their information publicly because they're not traded, they do have to report some numbers to the federal government, and that's kind of shared among the airline group. We also make sure that information is available to the airlines. And Avport sort of managed this. I think someone said it, on behalf of the New Haven Airport Authority. When we do this, it is somewhat restrictive. Some would argue very restrictive in what we're able to do. But, when New Haven, sort of first started to take federal money, one of the things that you've got to do as a federal grant recipient, I think in the US, the government, is pretty good to airports. But in exchange for that, you got to operate by a set of rules that can be somewhat restrictive. And one of those things is we've got to make the facilities available to anybody that comes. And is willing to fit into the space that we have available at the airport. I think not only are we required to do that, sort of administering this on behalf of the airport authority, not only have they asked us to do that, but the airport itself has to do that sort of as a federal grant recipient. So when Breeze showed up, they had been aware of Avelo's success for some time, but we almost had to take them. But they couldn't fly whenever they wanted to. We had to fit them into Avelo's valleys, and they sent a team of folks to work with us to make sure that they could fit sort of in Avelo's existing valleys. And certain of those grant assurances that are out there, require that we do that. The process by which air service happens, we maintain these relationships with airlines. We visit them at their headquarters on a regular basis. But a lot of information is shared sort of industry-wide at these sort of kind of well-known conferences. They kind of take the form of speed dating, frankly, where we meet with a number of airlines in one day, or they meet with a number of airports in one day. Sometimes that number is north of 20 or 25 per day. But during that period which we're there, we extol the virtues of serving the airports for which we have this responsibility. One of the key sort of tenets of those meetings and of air service development, and once you lose it, you don't get it back, is the requirement for confidentiality of sensitive airline information. They're prohibited under federal law from sharing their schedules or even talking about their schedules with other airlines. So by receiving that information and not keeping it confidential, we could be facilitating them sharing that with other airlines, right? If that makes sense. And that is, something that is just super sensitive to them. So one of the reasons I think, that airline that Tom mentioned earlier, dropped service after information leaking is because, they did not want to be in the situation of having shared schedule information, in advance of it becoming, truly public. And I will just note, with generally the limited facilities we have in the West, a lot of our sort of outreach has been focused on the future terminal. We are space constrained today. We can appreciate that traffic is congested in the terminal and in other, other areas such as parking. So a lot of our focus has been, on the future terminal facility. But again, with Breeze agreeing to grow in the manner that they have in the Avelo valleys, I think we're excited. I think we're blessed, frankly, to have so a carrier like that coming, and I think they'll continue to bring a lot of positives for the airport authority and for the community. I think you're going to like them. A little bit about Southern Connecticut here, and to wrap up pretty fast. Even though we still have a lot of runway. Actually, we don't have a lot of runway. We've got a lot of room to grow here. I think the environmental assessment that we accomplished, and the DOT's recognition that this area was underserved, sort of just lead carriers, including the ones that we talked to about the opportunity for this region. The carriers are hearing from their customers that the carriers need to be in this region. And frankly, when we talk to major airlines, the major airlines are hearing the same thing. That the low cost carriers have confirmed there is a market here, but a lot of carriers are in the same boat as the gentleman that was speaking earlier. They're not allowed to fly low cost carriers. And, now that those passengers have been sort of frankly, introduced to the idea that there should be service in their community, they're putting pressure on the major airlines to serve the market. So we certainly hope that we will be able to announce one of those in the near term, and especially with the opening of the new terminal. Table at the bottom there is just a few of the unserved potential routes. A couple of those have been added by the incumbent carrier since 2022 or since their launch. But again, there's still a lot that could be served. Frankly, the Breeze aircraft it's a 137 seat aircraft versus the Avelo aircraft that's somewhat larger. So they potentially could serve markets that might be not as efficient if they were served with the larger aircraft. So again, all the more reason to be excited about the Breeze launch and growth in Southern Connecticut. I would be remiss, they have been big in Connecticut for a long time. I think they've got deep ties to the community. I think they had, sort of a pretty substantial presence at some of the nearby peer airports in any event, but sort of reinforcing that with service to Tweed, I think is a good reason to be excited. The right side of this slide was just lifted from the EA, which was not accomplished that long ago. But I think someone sort of raised earlier, hey, look, what if we end up getting numbers in the EA in advance of when they were forecasted? That is completely okay. The FAA is aware. It's actually a good thing for the community, and it's a good thing for all of us. You can, to the point that was made earlier, just about things happening a little sooner. It wasn't that they weren't going to happen or that they weren't forecasted. They were just forecasted to perhaps happen, a year or two down the road, but they're going to happen in any event. That's kind of what the EA says. So I went ahead and put it in here, sort of a cut and paste anyway. I think the one thing that's notable is that we're tracking ahead of those, which is sort of driving the need for a new terminal sooner than I think the EA had otherwise anticipated. We're sort of tracking 605 passengers in 2025 prior to Breeze announcement. That number is between 700,000 and 800,000 annual passengers now. If you can see the table at the right there, we weren't going to get to those level of enplanements until 2026 or later, frankly. So all of this is sort of good. All of this is laying a great foundation, and again, just helping justify the need for that new terminal sooner. Finally, and I'll wrap up here. Just on compliance and operational standards, I mentioned earlier that Breeze requested to be accommodated, and we were able to accommodate them in the new terminal. There are a lot of reasons that we had to do that, but not the least of which were our compliance with the grant assurances. And at one point, it was even raised that hey, you've got one carrier that's got an exclusive right to the airport. No, we don't. We certainly have the opportunity to be able to accommodate others, and we were able to do that by working with Breeze scheduling. I think, the other thing, is, and I'm sure Jeremy will probably touch on it. This won't be, running airports is never easy, even though, Avports has done it for 100 years. Running airports is complex, and requires thoughtful scheduling, requires thoughtful enforcement of the rules of the road that are out there. And I think that, the team in New Haven does a really good job of doing that. And I think it's, the other sort of mandate that we get from the federal government is that, we're required to promote fair competition. We're not just required to comply and make sure that, competition is sacrosanct. We're required to promote it. And I think that's kind of what we're doing here by embracing the arrival of a new carrier. With that, that's going to wrap my presentation for today, but let me open up the floor for any questions and see if there's anything else we might be able to answer for
Here we go. May I?
Here we go.
May I?
Yep, go ahead, Ken.
I don't know, Rich, or you can go first.
And I don't know whose hand was up first.
Doesn't matter.
Damn it.
Go ahead, Ken.
All right, thanks. So an increase in arrivals and departures with Breeze coming into the airport. Possibly another airlines down the road if and when the new terminal opens, because more airlines will want more, as what I'm hearing from you, a piece of the pie in regards to, business that's opportunities that are here. When the EA was submitted to the FAA, was it anticipated that there would be an increase in arrivals and departures and employments in the EA that was submitted to the FAA? Does that EA need to be readjusted or does it throw it out the window? I don't know if this is for Tom, for you, Matt, whomever could answer that.
Yeah, I think Andrew's going to take that question.
Yeah, so the EA does anticipate more aircraft with the west terminal than with the east terminal. So those numbers, there's another table in there. I think MJ was looking at it earlier. But the EA does anticipate, because of the shorter runway and the limited capacity of the terminal, that there would be more aircraft on the west side than on the east side. So it does include these aircraft increases.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Rich?
I'm getting used to the concept of west side and east side because I think of Tweed is so small. When Matt said west, I kept thinking California, so I was a little confused. But so Matt, I take it from your remarks that Tweed is required to accept all comers with respect to airlines that want to do open service here. But I would think it's still true that the airport may have its own priorities for which cities where we would like to see new service. And can I take it from your chart a few slides back where you showed cities, the number of cities color-coded above some level, some demand threshold? Does that roughly approximate Avport's sense of what is feasible, what is desired, what our goals are? Is that influenced in part by consulting with employers in the region about what are their travel patterns? I'm curious about what all that says about the airport's priorities for where we would want to see new routes. Thanks.
Sure, Rich. So I think first of all, the table that I showed, it was just the most popular origin and destination routes. So these were just the routes where people started and were going to, notwithstanding where they may have connected, where they started from and they were headed at the end of the day. That was just the list of the most popular, top 25 routes. You bring up a really interesting point about airports being able to influence where the carriers fly. I'm going to give you two answers that are going to probably seem like really inconsistent with one another, but I'll try to tie it up at the end. On one hand, we don't have any real control over where they fly. They could fly sort of anywhere they want that is not otherwise restricted by the federal government. So, if they want to drop a flight, into any airport that's not slot control, which is all of them in the United States except for two, they can do that. And we don't really have any sort of influence over that. On the other side of the spectrum, there have been airports that would like to see service introduced to locations that they don't have today for any number of reasons. And carriers are always open to that, but usually that requires some sort of a motivation or incentive in order to serve those routes. And as long as you're willing to publish that and make that available to everyone, sort of again on that grant assurance 22 on a non-discriminatory basis, you could offer a discount to serve any market that you want. I would offer that the DOT, through its program to incentivize service similarly, currently offered, we'll call it a subsidy, but offered airlines assistance in order to serve, I believe 3 routes that are currently either have service or that will have service sort of in the near term. And those are San Juan, Concord Airport in North Carolina, and Atlanta. So, while we can't control where they go per se out of the box, we can influence it with incentives.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Any other questions for Matt? Any other questions for Matt? Okay, great. We'll move on. Thank you, Matt.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Finance Committee report.
Mr. Chair, we've had a chance to review them with no substantive questions. Tom will give a brief report on the financials.
Thank you, Serena. Thank you, Serena. I'm going to give you a report and then I'd like to explain it a little bit because I guess, I can understand there's some different numbers and I'll tell you how I do the math and why I look at it from one perspective. So for the airfield account, the revenues for June, excluding the lessee subsidy of $326,092, the total came in $13,707 over budget, and the actual subsidy was over budget by $19,084 for the month. Year-to-date revenues, excluding the $2.38 million subsidy, were $526,000 against a budget of $389,650, or $136,442 better than budget. Expenses for June, the actual expense came in over budget by $32,792. Year-to-date, the expenses are below budget by $1.158 million. The reason for the main driver of the expenses being over budget for that month were the airfield marking and program that they have to do, the painting and markings. I know I encountered this in many other airports. It's a significant operating expense. You have to do it at a particular time of year, and it's 1 month, so it's a heavy hit on expense. On the admin account, the revenues for June are above budget by $2,722. Year-to-date revenues are better than budget by $25,943. The expenses in the admin for the month were $7,472 under budget. Year-to-date, they're $19,537 below budget, and the actual net results for the admin fund for June was positive $6,276. Before I get into the balance sheet, I just want to go back to the airfield and explain the way I report it. And what I do is I'm backing out in the revenue side what I consider the subsidy, and it's what the lessee has to put in. It's essentially a plug because to meet the expenses, they have to come up with the difference. So I am comparing the other revenue line items to each other. Because again, it is the company's money that they're putting in. So I don't know if that makes any sense, Mark. I tried to go through that with you. So when you look at the numbers and what I report, they sound a little different because I'm doing some math in there. And again, I'm just trying to look at it from the perspective of, okay, how much of the, what I'll call subsidy, and the term isn't subsidy, but it's lessee's payment or whatever, reimbursement. So, and on the balance sheet, the fund balance at the end of this period, and by the way, the end of this period is the end of the year, was $232,950. The overall liabilities and fund balances are $1,166,370.
Great. Any comments or questions for Tom on finance? Any comments or questions for Tom on finance? Seeing none, Tom, thank you very much. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll begin with our report for airside operations. 3 items. First is West Apron Rehab. That continues to move forward. We are anticipating that job is going to be bid out here in the next week or so. And we anticipate construction to start in early October and completing mid to late November, hopefully in time for the holiday travel period. So we continue to work closely with the air carriers, coordinating on what that project will look like from a phasing perspective. And close working relationship with them throughout that project.
That project will also help with realignment of aircraft, correct me if I'm wrong, to make another usable gate essentially. So it'll improve utilization of the equipment. Is that
Correct. We'll be able to have what we refer to as turns on additional gates. And right now, we typically only 3 gates. We should be able to use 4 gates for turns on a regular basis. That'll allow us, just give us more capacity throughout the day.
So that's one of the ways they're handling the breeze. Anticipated traffic.
Second item, our transition to F3 firefighting foam remains on schedule for completion by the September 25th deadline. We just received delivery of our a leased vehicle to serve as we'll rotate that vehicle into service while we service our 2 vehicles that are currently in service. So we have the foam in stock. We'll be flushing out those systems. We'll be disposing of that as per deep requirements and getting our trucks back into service all within the next month or so. So that remains on schedule. And then the third thing, I hate to say it, but snow. It's never too early to start with snow. So we've already, last couple mornings, I don't know if you felt the fall chill in the air. So that's kind of my cue to start to think about, making sure our equipment is ready for the winter, get our supplies in line. We calibrate our friction measuring device. And then we'll start to have preseason meetings with the air carriers and tenants. Do retraining with our employees. So that takes that's a considerable undertaking. And then with that, with a new carrier, we'll start to talk to them about how we operate during the winter. And we've come up with a pretty good system with Avail that works, and I think the new carrier will assimilate to that fairly. Happy to take any questions on the airside portion of my report.
Yes. Are they going to have any aircraft here overnight, so it'll be easy in the morning without delays?
We currently, their schedule shows them having 1 overnighter.
And they're going to use the jetway, I assume?
We anticipate that would be the preferred location because that is underutilized today by Availo. So that's one of the efficiencies that we see where we're able to accommodate them.
Any other questions? Ken,
Yeah, so Jeremy, just refresh my memory if you didn't cover it before or Tom didn't. So how are you going to handle additional parking, passenger management, ticketing, et cetera, with, obviously more customers coming through Tweed? What are we doing? The parking obviously is always an issue. It continues to be an issue. So,
So
tell me how this is going to be. How are you going to plan this out in regards to passenger management, parking, et cetera?
Well, I've been fortunate to be a part of the conversations in advance, and so we've had several weeks to start planning for this. Bringing on a new carrier. I can tell you that I'll just kind of work down the line. I've already been in contact with Breeze's operations department. They're going to be coming. They've already made 1 visit. They'll be making a second visit on Tuesday of next week. So we'll be learning more about what their operational needs are as far as the basics, office space, ticket counters, those types of things. You know, Breeze is a very efficient airline where, as is Available, but you know, they're minimal, right? They try to operate, you know, as efficient as possible. They don't need, you know, six ticket counters and, you know, 10,000 feet of office space, which we don't have, but, you know, we're gonna add 2 ticket counters. They need, you know, 300 square feet of office space. They'll need a baggage claim storage facility. But as you move out, you know, there's really nothing that we're really not changing much. You know, we already have programs in place where we have off-site parking at Temple Street. We have, you know, Laz is in position to provide shuttle service. We have redundancy there. We have a partnership with Elite Limo that has transportation as backup. We're working with Alder, South Dakota to identify some off-site cell phone waiting areas that is not on site to supplement the additional parking capacity that we have. Typically in Lot C, we provide an hour of free parking. So if someone arrives, they can pull a ticket, they can wait in the lot for their party to arrive. And we are partnering with, continuing our partnership with New Haven Police. We had a meeting with the sergeant that oversees Tweed, and they have agreed to help us with additional traffic enforcement on site and be more, you know, standing with us on the curb. So a little bit more ability to move traffic and have some, you know, just greater enforcement power. We have an agreement with a towing company, Bruno's Towing. Very positive relationship. They're here within 15 minutes to move a car if we need it. So those, I don't really see a lot changing other than maybe more frequency with activating some of those plans for when we need to have off-site parking. And then it comes down to messaging. You know, Avelo has been very cooperative with us in messaging directly to their customers. With the addition of Tom to our team, Tom is working vigorously to craft messaging for social media, our website, and then we're looking at some digital messaging boards that we will have on site to be able to communicate directly with the customer, and some of the other creative technology that is kind of above my level of knowledge, but we're looking at other ways to communicate with the customers on the ground to allow them to know when their party is actually at the curb, so we don't have the continuous, you know, snake of traffic or static traffic sitting at the curb. So we'll be changing some of those operational standard operating procedures, but we're really not needing to reinvent how we do business. It's really just it's more continuation of what we already do on a, you know, throughout the day versus having, again, like we talked about, the peaks and valleys. It's just gonna be more steady.
So does that off-site parking at Temple Garage work? I mean, how many people are actually utilizing that opportunity?
Well, anytime there's more than 1,100-ish cars, and I would say on any, you know, couple hundred people on a weekend, maybe, not even that. So I think that's where the messaging has really been effective. A lot of people are getting dropped off by their you know, their friends and family, or they're getting, you know, using TNC or taxi. So that messaging has been really effective, and that's actually, you know, we actually have a little bit more capacity than we used to have. I think it's just, you know, it's during the holiday travel seasons that we've reached capacity and had to use that, but it may be that we use that more often now with more frequency with the addition of Breeze.
We've been using Temple Street for 2 years, so it definitely works, and there's a system in place, so, you know, it's been a proven method for overflow traffic.
How many spots are over there?
And it's full of.
Okay, and finally, you talked about off-site cell phone parking. Have you identified areas? New Haven, obviously my interest is East Haven, where you might be looking at where those off-site cell phone parking may be?
Yeah, ideally it's.
Can you share that with me, please?
Yeah, we've Sal DeCola, Alder DeCola has you know, introduced us to St. Bernadette's, which is right up the street here. They have a parking lot that accommodate about 50 spaces. So we're working with them. We haven't come to an official agreement, but they actually offered that as an option. So that conversation is ongoing. And then the Marsal, Hotel Marsal, they've graciously offered their parking areas for when.
Where's that? Where's that?
Right next to IKEA.
In IGA in East Haven?
IKEA.
No,
Oh,
IKEA.
IKEA.
Yes. So, and that's more for when, if you have extended delays and people are gonna be waiting for, an hour or two, they need a place to go, they wanna grab a cup of coffee, and they don't need to be as close, so that's probably, reserved for, level 2. But for the day-to-day, it's, lot C, people can pull a ticket, park for an hour without a charge. They'll hopefully be able to go to St. Bernadette, wait for a text from their party, and then, our staff on site actively managing the traffic that's moving, and again, in coordination with New Haven Police. And, we it's been effective to date. We've Tom, I'll let Tom speak about, his interaction with the neighbors, but, we regularly get calls about, concerns that they have, and, we try to be responsive to what those needs are, and, we'll continue to do that.
So has Mr. Alderman DeCola or you guys reached out to the Archdiocese of Hartford for permission or entering in a contract with the Archdiocese of Hartford, who owns the property?
We've been, well, I know that he has been communicating on our behalf with whomever it is makes those decisions. So I'm not sure who that is exactly.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to make that call to Monsignor Shanley, who I'm working with on a couple of real estate transactions. I'd be happy to make that call on behalf of the authority of some of it.
Right man to talk to, Matt. Right man to talk to.
Yes, I
Finally,
agree.
in regards to breeze coming in, more planes coming in, what about additional fuel storage? Would there be, obviously more fuel, more planes, more fuel? So tell me about additional fuel storage.
Yeah, we are, Robinson Aviation is the FBO at the airport that holds the agreements with the air carriers. So my understanding is they are currently working with the town of East Haven on a temporary storage solution as we await a permanent solution for expanding their fuel farm.
Okay, thank you.
Serena?
Yep.
Serena.
I just had a quick question in terms of fill-in. And you're saying that their breezes will be flying intermittently in between the Avelo flights. And how does that impact the number of people because when there are departures happening, it can get really tight.
Right.
So how's that gonna work?
No, just look right now, right? So we're talking about filling in the valley.
Right.
It's the prime example of filling in the valley, where you're not piling people on top of people. You're filling in a valley, that sits here. Tom sits up in the control tower there and sees the valleys and sees the peaks.
Right.
But this is a valley, so there's nobody around. You fill in the valley. You're not putting people on top of people. So you're taking opportunities within the day. To be able to fill in those valleys, and be able to serve people, in a regular way. So, this is you have a prime example of kind of that opportunity here to be able to bring somebody in, turn it, and be out and fill in the valley. So that's the intent. It's you can't put people on top of people.
Well, in theory, like Jeremy said though too, encourage them to use loading bridge during peak times if there was any overlap. In terms of people on top of people, you're putting people upstairs more because that's an underutilized area.
Right.
Just generally, you've got X amount of positions out here to park aircraft. You've got a set amount of aircraft that you can get onto this site at any one time. You need to fill in the valleys, and this is a great example of that. Is just do that. We have parking available, spaces available, so it's really taking advantage of that been utilized in maximizing the facility versus trying to pile people on and stress them?
Okay, you have two questions. One, is it possible, is any probability of opening up negotiations with Uber? And two, with Avelo, with Hartford right now, and Breeze up in Hartford, the diversions, I assume, will be all up there, which would be a lot better for passengers.
That is the advantage that Avail has talked about.
I want to make sure they can hear you.
Yeah, no, that is the advantage, I think, for Valo to set up, operations up there and talk to their team, that by having operations in Bradley, it's easier to accommodate and have that presence in the staff to be able to handle diversion. So, Tom got diverted to Albany, and I know, we've all got diverted, on American. I got diverted to, Burlington one time. So, so we've all gotten that, but Avail's operations up there will be able to handle that. Breeze obviously has operations up there as well. So it just makes them easier to use, BDL as a consistent way for diversions rather than trying to find other airports that can accommodate them. So I think that's the one. What was the other?
Uber.
Oh, Uber. Well, whenever Uber's ready to talk to us, we're willing to talk to them. So I think, so I'd say never say never. I obviously take that into consideration as part of this, but never say never. We're always kind of thinking about that. And how we can.
I think as they start to see the success in the numbers, they're probably going to say, hey, we can get in there too. So, and just one other point of Michael's, Bradley's a good alternative, assuming the weather's good at Bradley too.
Who decides, who decides on,
If I could take.
I don't know, who decides on,
I'm out of order, and not on the board. Very simply, it's not what it is cast. It is not a matter of convenience for passengers. I have legal responsibility, starting with what's in my fuel tank. As Tom correctly pointed out, weather is a driving factor. And where we go, unfortunately, is not a matter of passenger convenience. It is not a matter of airline convenience. It's always safety. It's followed by regulatory, and passenger convenience is tertiary, if not even lower than that. It's a very complex regulatory operational matter that no one sees except the flight crew, along with dispatcher, traffic control. To analogize it, regrettably, I cannot take a survey of my passengers and ask them. It's inevitably going to be inconvenient and troublesome. Getting on the ground is the most important thing. And we also have, to kind of segue very quickly, you cannot land an air carrier aircraft at any airport. It has to be certified and on your list as an airline. Those are things that only we know. That's why we do what we do. So we'd love to go where it's convenient and 20 miles away, but it doesn't always work that way for many technical and regulatory reasons.
So one more, all right, Ken, again?
Yeah, I want to go back to St. Bernadette's for a minute and the use of the parking lot. So I just got off the phone with Monsignor Shanley, who's a dear friend for the last 40 years. And he's the vicar general of the archdiocese, second under the bishop. He has no clue about the use of St. Bernadette's.
If I could just jump in quickly, Ken. So Father Marasso is going to be talking to the archdiocese before any agreement gets signed. So, this is a conversation that's been in the works, and, we're going to continue to work.
Well, I just needed to check with Monsignor Shanley, who, my reach is far and wide, as you know. So I needed to check with him to find out what was going on. I texted him, he called me, and that's what I know. So.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
And if I could just on that, our goal here is to leave anything we use better than it was. So, what we've offered is we've already done significant, vegetation removal. It's a property that, doesn't.
I'm not questioning the use of the property.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, but that's our goal. Our goal is to, partner with our neighbors. We're looking to stripe it, to crack seal it, and to make it better than it was when we started. We're committed to you know, picking up the trash, snow removal. So, we're really,
Yeah.
we're appreciative for them.
Yeah.
You know, our-
And Marasso's in Israel right now, for your FYI.
If I could also intercede on that, I'm a parishioner of St. Bernadette's also, and there's been a lot of work done. It's fantastic. Father Marasso is in touch with Hartford. He happens to be running a trip he's in Ireland right now. He comes back this week. He is gonna be talking to the archdiocese when he gets back from Ireland. So I think any calls to Monsignor Shanley may be jumping the gun a little bit.
Well, you're the guys who
Father-
mentioned Monsignor Shanley, not me. You mentioned him, I did.
But,
No,
you know,
Matt brought
just
up
let's hold off, let Father Marasso
Matt
do his
brought up
job
the
with the
talk.
archdiocese. He's in favor of the plan. He likes it. And from what I understand, his concerns were addressed.
Great. Any further questions for Jeremy on airfield operations? Airfield operations, any further questions?
I wanted to ask. The parking, because there's no valleys in the parking, right? If somebody comes here and parks in the morning and there's no traffic throughout the day, the car is still out there. So we're not expanding any parking right now. You're looking at Temple, and how many slots were at Temple? I couldn't hear you, Tom. I thought you were.
I think they've got over 900.
I drove
I'm
by
not sure, but-
today and on one level, there were 700.
Okay.
We worked with Doug over at Park New Haven on that, and the whole full, and we've got alternative garages to use.
It's also worth noting, just again reiterating that the education of the market, our customers, and we've come a really long way since those early days. People were parking on the grass. This Sunday, we had our highest inbound day. And before that hit, we still had availability in the parking lot. Now that's not all the time. You know, on Friday, I think we sent some people over to the garage. But just to illustrate that the education is a huge key to this, and demonstrating that even on our biggest day ever, which was Sunday, that we still had availability is a testament to our ability to work with the airline and ability to communicate with customers and make sure that everybody is aware of what the parking situation looks like before they show. Just like any other airport, I mean,
Yeah.
when you're going to LaGuardia, you have to check before you show.
But to some extent, Mark, there are valleys in the parking in the characteristic of the passenger, meaning they're not all outbound. So we're starting to see more inbound traffic than it was predominantly outbound before.
Okay.
And the inbound folks don't need the parking. They're the ones that are using the rental cars and cabs and everything else. So there is a little bit of a valley situation there. You don't see it physically, but it exists from demand.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions for Jeremy on airfield operations? Airfield operations, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Jeremy. Let's move on to the leases report.
Yes, thank you. All right, a few items just to give some specifically, yes, as you heard, Sunday was a record day. We actually served over 5,700 passengers. And we have, just to give you some perspective, we only have approximately 1,100 spaces on site. So that just kind of shows you the effectiveness of the process we have in place. Everyone, I think, was aware of the heavy rain and inclement weather we had over the weekend, and I'm happy to report there was no impact to HPN. Our team has become very efficient at managing the tide gates, being aware of anticipating low tides, high tides, and controlling the ebbs and flows of the tide and the water levels. Big hats off to Brian Hoffman and the operations team. I called on Saturday, or I think it was Saturday, and it was all taken care of. The water levels were good, and I don't even have to worry about that anymore, just because it's just become so ingrained. So I was saying the other day, it's the wintertime we're worrying about snow, the summertime we're looking at the rain forecast, and it's really a 24/7 monitoring of the impact and weather. But with that said, we still have our tide, our flood barrier system. Our team is fully trained and ready to deploy those at a moment's notice. Majority of our maintenance team lives within, a couple miles of the airport. I make a phone call, they're here within 15 minutes, and the system is in place within an hour. So they've gotten really good at, preparing for that, practicing. But we're better able to anticipate when those needs to be put up, when they need to be installed. A lot of times we've wasted man hours putting them up for no reason. I think we're getting better at gauging that. So spoke to that. EV charging stations are fully functional and in operation. That project was completed last week. We have 3 vehicles in our fleet that are going to utilize that asset, and I'm thankful for that. So we don't have to sit for an hour at a charging station, up at Route 9 or something. It's nice to be able to plug in and be able to go about our day. Improvements, with the growth, we've had several capital projects, in our target, and one of those is restrooms in the arrivals terminal. If you've been down there, you'll know that there's 2 stalls in the women's room, 1 stall in the men's room. Our goal is to double that capacity, to have 4 stalls in the women's, 2 in the men's with 2 additional urinals. So we are in the final stages of looking to move that project forward. And I think that's something that it's a glaring concern that's been brought to our attention. So we're looking to make that improvement. And then finally, EnviroSuite, I mentioned that we're getting very close to signing that agreement. We share draft agreements back and forth. We expect that to be executed here in the coming week. And then you'll start to see some rollout of our new sound HVN website, HVN sound website, and some more expertise to share with this board as well as the general public. So we're excited to bring them into the fold and to be able to move some of these other community benefits that we've promised in the past. So that's the conclusion of my landside report.
Great. Any questions for Jeremy?
Expand on the restrooms. Is that like you're going outside the footprint of the building or
Just right downstairs.
just room within the building?
Yeah, within the building.
We have permits are approved, so
When's construction going to start?
To be determined, but we would like to get it completed before the holidays.
Any other questions for Jeremy? Questions for Jeremy? Thank you, Jeremy. Any updates on reports and action items?
There was one action Andrew took about trying to manage the Uber drivers off-site. I don't know.
Yeah, so we have coordinated with the city of New Haven. They have our traffic patterns, and they have committed and have started regulating by sending more officers down here on a regular basis to help with traffic on, idling traffic and parking traffic on Bird and Brookdale, and speeding on the other Townsend.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Tom C. has a report also.
That's-
He's gonna have a regular standing one. We'll put it on the agenda.
Great, yeah, I didn't know if that was following under, I was waiting for
I
Jeremy to
apologize.
pass the baton.
I apologize.
You still new.
Yeah, I know.
I look
All right, great. So,
forward
Tom C., why don't you introduce yourself again and tell everyone, what your responsibilities are and give us a report.
Certainly, and it's great to meet all of you that I haven't had the chance to yet. My name is Tom Cavalier. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here for the airport. And I started just over 2 months ago, and very excited to be working with the team and with all of you, and excited to share as well that really jumped in with a splash. And so what I'll be doing with my report today is just sharing with you what we've been up to in the community from a sponsorship and partnerships perspective, and just some of the engagements and interactions that we have with neighbors. So just starting off on sponsorships and partnerships, we had a great opportunity to meet and connect with members of our region's Puerto Rican community at the Puerto Rican Festival of New Haven, of which we were a sponsor. It was just a great opportunity to highlight our connectivity with Puerto Rico, which was very timely in light of Avelo's increased services to San Juan. We also sponsored and attended the annual James E. Murray Golf Tournament, which was a tribute to the memory of Jim Murray, who was a cherished member of East Haven's Riverside Fire Company number 6 for 40 years and a lifelong East Haven resident. We also met at that event, and became good friends with the East Haven Chamber of Commerce and the dedicated volunteer firefighters of Riverside Fire Company 6, which covers part of the airport. A few weeks ago, we also attended and sponsored St. Bernadette Church celebration of St. Clair, which was a 2-night festival, and thanks to Alder DeCola for introducing us to that. It was a great opportunity as well to speak with dozens of neighbors who are excited to see the airport represented at the event and to learn more about the increased connectivity that Breeze brings to air travel for the region. We also engaged in candid and productive conversations with these neighbors who are concerned about the impact of Breeze's announcement on the surrounding community and provided the answers that all of you heard today. Michael Jones and I also toured last month Connecticut Food Share, another partner of the airports, toured their facility to see firsthand the positive impact that they have on mitigating food insecurity in the state. We're a proud sponsor and partner of theirs, and we look forward to collaborating with them around the holiday season. We also toured City Seeds' new commercial kitchen and hub in Fairhaven, learn more about their programming around farmers markets, food security, and supporting entrepreneurship in the region. We also held an employee appreciation lunch for the entire HVN team to express our gratitude to the over 400 people that work here from TSA, Avelo, Robinson Aviation, of course, the Avports team, and the many, many other companies and organizations that make this a really great place to work. And then just on that sponsorships, partnerships, and events side, also attended the City of New Haven's Vision 2034 workshop on climate and ecological connections, which was just a great way for us to increase our understanding of the broader environmental concerns that face the greater New Haven region and build connections and relationships with these important thought leaders in our community. Just wanted to also provide a follow-up from our last community meeting on the topic of speeding on Thompson Avenue. We spoke with the town of East Haven, who has put up speeding signs on Thompson Avenue and have referred further plans for speed bumps to a subcommittee. And so I'll provide updates as they arise on that. There was also a concern about commercial trucks on Thompson Avenue. So we held a meeting with Robinson Aviation and the vendors that supply their jet fuel to reiterate the importance of avoiding travel down this residential street. And I had spoken with a neighbor who had raised this to our attention on the 19th, who reported that they've seen a positive change and no recent reports of trucks down the street. So we're very glad for that. We'll continue to keep an eye on traffic down that road and make further adjustments as necessary. Regarding the traffic study patterns on Fort Hale, the City of New Haven continues to study this issue, and we'll have more of an update to provide in September on next steps and possible solutions. Spoke also with the East Shore management team to provide updates on the Breeze announcement and to clarify additional concerns around aircraft type, which also pleased to share these are aircraft that are quieter and more fuel efficient. And so we're glad to have those as part of the airport fleet. Just looking ahead, we'll continue to update community members and neighbors on the activity happening here at the airport. And between now and next month, we're excited to actually just even tonight head over to Lobster Palooza and be with our friends at the East Haven Chamber of Commerce. So we have a team both on the Avports and Avello side that'll be attending that, which will be a great event just to celebrate good friends and community. We also have the Special Olympics plane pull on September 24th, which is a really great partnership that we have with Avello and Special Olympics Connecticut. And so there will be several teams of 20 pulling a Boeing 737 next generation aircraft, a distance of 20 feet. So the winning member of the team will be awarded a round trip ticket on Avello Airlines, and just a great opportunity to support Special Olympics. We also, as Tom mentioned, have rescheduled the ATC meeting for October 1st at 6:30 p.m. at Nathan Hale. Thanks to Alder DeCola for helping us organize that. We'll make updates to the Facebook page and other social media channels as appropriate to make sure everybody's aware and in the loop. And then looking ahead onto October 3rd, we'll be attending as a sponsor the East Haven Police Athletic League's golf tournament to show our thanks and appreciation for the dedicated members of the East Haven Police Department. So these are just some of the very many things that we have going on in the community, and we'll be excited to provide you more updates at the next board meeting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. A lot of work. Thank you, Tom. Any questions for Tom C?
Tom C, is Jesse Phillips. Glad you're on board and congratulations. Question: when we are out in the community, are we collecting folks' information, or is there like a QR code for folks to sign up to receive news, emails, etc.?
It's a great question, and part of the process, in the effort of, really making sure that I'm available and accessible to members of the community and attending these events, I've been giving them my contact information. That's both my email and my direct cell phone number. Long term, one of the things that I'd like to do is start collecting information to have a newsletter, so that we can just increase and create another avenue of engagement with members of the community. And just also to underline too that my role as the Director of Community Engagement is a fulfillment of a term made in the lease agreement between Avports and the authority, which is to have a full-time, day-to-day dedicated resource and community liaison. And so 2 months in, we've made a lot of headway, and we'll continue to make ourselves and make myself available. And so you have my contact information, and I will make sure that the rest of the board does as well. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, either yourselves or members of your own network that you'd like to send my way, please do.
Thank you. Any other questions for Tom C? Any other questions for Tom C? All right, let's move on to other business. Any other business? What?
One thing.
You
Yeah.
Mark?
You and I talked about this, so I'm not sure where it comes out, but in the New Haven Independent article about Senator Looney, one of the comments at the bottom, I pointed that out to you. Somebody made the comment that they couldn't get the noise funding for their house because they had put solar panels on their house, and there's some kind of FEMA restrictions with how much money can be spent on a certain property. So I don't know. I don't think it's a board thing, but maybe this is something we should bring up to some of our politicians to see if there's any way to get exemptions for some of these people that, may want to get the noise insulation or whatever to their house, and they've already, spent money on solar or whatever it may be.
Yeah, if they increase the value of their home over 50%, and they're in a flood zone, they have to raise it. I don't know what New Haven's numbers are, 10 feet. In Guilford, it's 10 plus freeboard, which is 1. So you have to actually elevate the.
Yeah. So if I don't know if there's something we can do, give some people exemptions around the airport for that, or.
Well, there's also the Avports program that will kick in when available and appropriate, allowed by the FAA and all that. And then I know that the city of New Haven and Senator Looney are also working for additional dollars for additional soundproofing that would cover outside of the FAA program. All of it is very tricky because of the FAA stuff, so we have to follow a timeline with them. but that there are resources that will be available for those people who are very close or maybe should have qualified under that kind of a circumstance.
But it's a FEMA restriction, so it's not necessarily how much money they can get. It's the fact that they can't take on any more renovations to their house because of the FEMA
Yeah.
thing. So, and I know that's federal,
Yeah.
but I don't know if there's any way Connecticut can step in or New Haven or
Whatever,
whatever.
we should make them aware in advance as much as possible, so we can work on
So I
that.
don't know if that's something that Tom C takes up or you, Andrew,
Yeah, I think
or
that, I would, we'll talk
or
to,
maybe Rich, Robert,
Yeah.
your connections with the state. You know, I just think we should ought to try to do something for these people.
we do share a resource on our lobbyists, and so I think that's a good conversation to have with them.
And in the meantime, reach out to the city because there are available resources that they can tap into
Yeah.
as well.
Again, it wasn't a complaint about the
It's
resource,
just an
it was the complaint that because of
Couldn't
FEMA, they
do it.
couldn't add any more value to their house, like
Right.
Matt just suggested.
Got it.
We'll reach out to Dallas and have a conversation, and I'll give you a break, tell you how that goes.
Yeah, all right. That's all I have. Thanks.
No problem. Any other points under other business? I have one. So according to Article 4 of our bylaws, Section 3, I am going to, as the chairman's discretion, appoint Matt Hoey to the Community Advisory Board. As we know, it's a non-voting position. And Matt will join Elliot Jameson, Jerry Weiner, Peter Leonardi, Kevin Arnold, and Dan Adams on that advisory board, which is to oversee the Good Neighbor program. Okay, so Matt, thank you, and looking forward to your service. Again, one more time, any other business? Any other business? Seeing none, we'll move on to a public comment. Lita? Hello, Maureen Moore, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Maureen Moore, Short Beach, Branford, Connecticut. First, Mr. Huey, I would like to wish you, your family, a future of good health and security. Something that struck me in what I thought was your final address was that how lucky that Avello came to Tweed at a time where we were welcoming an airline that fit a small regional airport. I pondered at what point did that small become obese? When did the small idea and concept of Ovello become an obese, perfect fit? Mr. Shelby, you use terms, and forgive me if I'm not using the exact words because I was driving, but you said that we were blessed to have Breeze, which had supersonic, again, if that's not the correct word, capabilities in their engines to also be courting major airlines and international flights. We who live in an area as far up as Meriden, Connecticut, do not feel that it is a blessing, but a very threat to our lives and our security. I thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to be recognized and address everyone who is on this meeting.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. I can't read the name.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening. State your name.
Good evening, good afternoon. My name's Gabriella Campos. I'm on James Street in New Haven. I moved away because of the fumes, and unfortunately, the new flights are now also flying overhead, and continue to monitor what's happening in my city with this activity. And as many of you know, I participated very early on in this process. And the numbers that we're looking at are very different than what was promised. So I don't understand how this is going to be really consistent with what you've said you would do with the community and work with the community, the promises that you've made to the community collectively and as individuals. I want to raise three particular issues regarding that. One is fire code. There have been pictures that you yourselves shared in the EA where it was pretty obvious that because of the way that flights are stacked, it's also why we see the traffic jams the way that they are, and the idling the way that it is. It's the stacking of the flights due to management's choice to create staffing chunks, I suppose. That's the only reasonable explanation that I could conjure. So it seems that because that's done, there's a lot of complaints about people being held up and held back. And so there's many people that are likely more than what's allotted per the fire code. And so I wanted to know how you're addressing that. That's a huge issue within the airport, per your own pictures. I wanted to know, there were promises early on about having extra duty police officers to come in and help with traffic flow. I don't know how that is a feasible promise since we have been understaffed in the New Haven Police Department for some years now. And there's also a state law regarding idling, and that's something that's often violated at the airport, with people just, running their cars for their air conditioner or for heat. And that's something that I think is the responsibility of the airport to share with folks about state laws that aren't being followed. And so I just wanted to know how those three specific issues were going to be addressed: the illegal idling, the traffic flow that causes serious health concerns and safety concerns, and the fire code situation that your pictures have illustrated in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Catherine Bennett. Good evening. Name and address, please.
Hi, Catherine Bennett. I live on Thompson Avenue, and I'd like to thank Tom for addressing the problem of the fuel trucks coming down. And I also wanted to say that I wrote to Cheryl Quain at the FAA about Tweed's temporary fuel farm, and she did tell me it's considered temporary because it is on a wetland. And I was wondering if there was any plans for a permanent fuel farm, because as we all know, temporary permits expire. Okay, so although I have many concerns about Tweed Airport, my most recent ones stem from the current passenger facilities charge proposal dated July 1st, 2024. This is a proposed $4.50 surcharge on passenger tickets. And it says in that proposal, the money raised will go, among other things, towards a runway 220 extension, East Terminal, Airport and Taxiway, wetland mitigation design and phase 1 construction, and these ones are really scary, land acquisition and obstruction mitigation, and obtain land for easement of Taxiway A North Extension and parallel Taxiway A extensions. The estimated project implementation date is September 2024, which is coming up really quickly. And the estimated project completion date, April 2027. It appears to me that you are trying some backdoor strategy to move ahead with your expansion plans before the Fonzie appeals from East Haven and Save the Sound are resolved. I compared the maps of this project to the master plan, and parts of it were exactly the same, including changes to Dodge Avenue and filling in or covering up part of Tuttle Brook. I believe that another environmental study should be done before this can happen. I searched the Tweed website for more information on this project and found none. I actually saw that some parts of your website, including terminal information, was last updated in 2020.
30 seconds left.
This is another example of Tweed's lack of transparency in regards to this proposed airport expansion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Patrick Rowland. Hello. Name and address, please.
Patrick Rowland, 2 Minor Road in East Haven, 3,900 feet due south of runway 2. Wave when you fly over. It's getting kind of tired waking up at 6:30 every morning. Thank you very much. I got $7.50 for my alarm clock on eBay. I wanted to bring a couple things to your attention. The first thing actually is Matt Hoey just mentioning about the houses expending 50% of FEMA, and I thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. It wasn't the first thing on my agenda, but it's where I'm starting with. The existing terminal and all of the temporary terminals, and I want everybody on this board to understand, and all the people that are listening, they are illegal. They are not in compliance with current FEMA regulations. And when they were constructed and installed with a very poorly and ill-designed approvals by the city plan, they were ideally designed to be temporary. They expanded the footprint beyond what was existing, and they went over the 50%. So it's ironic that Matt happens to know about the 50% for the expansion of a house and putting FEMA stuff and additional solar and additional work there, but you have somehow forgotten that that is an extremely critical component of your permits and your right to exist where you are. All of the temporary buildings are illegal and non-compliant. There's lots of electrical below the flood zone. There are electrical gates and electrical components below the flood zone. There are even plugs and outlets that are in the flood zone that are all illegal and should never have been installed. Never, ever, ever have been installed. I've had discussions with Diane Ifkovic at the state level, and she thought that they were only going to be temporary and thought that it was within her purview, which it wasn't. It was a major flaw for the state of Connecticut and the city building inspector and Giovanni Zinn to allow and approve you to do the work that you've done. You now have an opportunity to fix it. Nobody wants to stand up and admit that King Midas isn't wearing any pants, but guess what? He's not. And you are completely and 100% non-compliant with federal FEMA regulations. The second thing I want to bring to your attention is the church is an pre-existing, non-conforming, non-legal commercial property in an R2 residential zone. It is very clear that it is allowed to be a church, not a commercial parking lot. You cannot just do a little side deal with Father Marasso. It is wonderful and infinite and inimitable basis trying to continue the success of St. Bernadette's, which I'd like to see. And I was there in the rain getting food on St. Clair's night, and even offered to provide free clams and oysters as a fundraiser and participate with that activity. So I'd like to see St. Bernadette succeed and grow forward, but it should do so as a residential facility because that's what's allowed in our zone. You need to go to the city plan long before you ever even think of putting one commercial car there, much like your trick that you did over on Dodge Avenue when you were doing cars illegally parked there. Additionally, I'd like to know, and I will send an FOI on this, who pays exactly what to Avalo and the airport and the various subsidies for not only the San Juan flight, but also for Concord. Where does the money go? Who pays for it? How much is it? Because it's
Thank you, Patrick. Your time is up. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, you don't want to hear the truth, do you?
Laura Khan, name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Laura Khan. I live at 54 Cleveland Road in New Haven. And I believe I heard an airplane at 5:27 in the morning on July 31st. And I think I heard on August 19th 2 or 3 airplanes around 12:30 in the morning. And I think I heard one recently within the last couple weeks at 2:45 in the morning. And I thought the hours of flight were confined to none of those times. And I live near the Yale Bowl. And so when I hear these planes, I'm guessing they're even louder for the people near the airport. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
No new one so far online? No news so far online, I don't know if anyone.
No, okay, great. Anyone in the room that'd like to address?
I'd like to talk, but I don't want to go first.
Okay.
Sorry. I warm up.
Hi, name and address, please.
Lorena Menegas, 73 George Street in East Haven. And I'm really disappointed in everything that's happening here. I am the resident in East Haven who's been to the most Tweed Airport Authority meetings since the year 2019. I have read every document. I have done my own research. And East Haven, as an environmental justice town, cannot continue this way. And all of you have leverage, all of you have contacts, and all of you can change this immediately. And instead of trying to be against me, you should try to work with me. Over the past month, I have outreach to these guys and they have not been responding to me. I have done FOIAs to get the noise addresses, not compliant. Yochi, not compliant. The legal documents on board membership, not compliant. It has to stop. My background is corporate communications. And you are not a good corporate citizen right now. I have worked for amazing corporations, and you're in a massive communication crisis. I know because I used to train executives on how to stop those crises. So I know how to create those crises too. And this cannot continue this way. Mr. Reed, I'm speaking to you. I believe in policymaking. I believe in change. And I believe that this board is much better than this. Matt Hoey didn't give me a chance. And Scrog in July said that he and David White are off of the Scrog board. Sure, we got John Picard back, but John Picard has already been here over 2 terms. And what did we get out of it? I didn't get any deal for East Haven. I got a bad engineering right there on Thompson Avenue. The ditch that was built, you guys overspent money on the engineering on the ditch. Meanwhile, my residents, we don't get anything. We have people living here with asthma. We have a scientist from Tufts University who not only has calculated the emissions here, but knows that every time a plane lands or takes off, the polluted air inside people's homes lasts 8 hours. It's porous. We live in homes that are not 100% safeguarded for what's here and what's coming. It took me a long time to convince a lot of people that the 800 planes are out of place. Now you understand that the 800 planes are out of place. You also understand that you have broken requests for proposals. You know, basic things like letting women and minorities participate. Not one black brewery, not one Latina brewery was allowed to even do business with you because they didn't know about it. And we definitely need to fix that baggage belt. I don't want any child to be burned on a baggage belt, no matter what I think about expansion.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Be ready now?
Okay, well, I guess on that opportunity, I'll segue.
Tony, come up towards the mic, please.
Hello, everyone. Forgive, I'm going without most of my notes. Tony Laurenti, Meriden, Connecticut, 23 Briar Lane. I'm here to make an official announcement on behalf of the Airline Pilots Association, Breeze Airways Master Executive Council. That is the union, not the company itself. I'm here to read my prepared statement. I'm privileged to be able to act on authorization of ALPA, the Airline Pilots Association, to join with our professional pilot colleagues in delivering safe, quality, reliable air travel to Southern Connecticut that will bring favorable recognition to both of our airlines, Breeze Airways and Avelo Airlines. And in so doing, I will be facilitating a number of things, to include breaking bread with our Avello colleagues in order to commiserate and to discuss many issues that relate to the very job that we do. In addition, I'm going to be acting and volunteering as the Airline Pilots Association Airport Liaison Representative to discuss and address pilot-centric issues that benefit not just crew members and the passengers that we're responsible for, but for the homes of the people that we fly over. It's about safety, and a properly standardized way of operating an aircraft benefits everyone. So other than that, wishing to respond to numerous technical details that we don't have time for, but that will be the role that I hope to be involved with in a very significant way. I'm pretty sure that the Airbus A220 is not illegal, not according to Airbus documents. I know numbers on that airplane that exceed this runway by twice, but they're all under variable technical conditions, just as the 737. We're going to move on from that. I happen to think it's a great, wonderful airplane. And jumping right into the technical matters. Again, I'm not acting on behalf of Breeze Airways. 10 destinations that we will be offering does not mean 10 airplanes. It doesn't mean 10 flights per day. It doesn't mean X number of flights every day. And I can confirm what Jeremy had already brought up. So he spilled the beans. It's not particularly private. We're going to be overnighting, as I understand it as well, one airplane. I emphasize our schedule as it's planned can be operated with 3 airplanes. It's called aircraft utilization. This issue about gaps in capacity is very important. It's important at all airports. Tweed is not unlike any other airport. We're talking about 3 airplanes, and all I can do now is generalize and support the words that were spoken already, with 1 airplane overnighting and 3 aircraft at most. Don't quote me on that. I'm not the company, but that's how aircraft utilization works. It's not as big as it seems. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, hello.
Hi. Laura Belichico, 300 Lighthouse Road, New Haven, Connecticut. I'm not such a good speaker like the other people, but I do want to say a few things without getting emotional. Since the community public meeting April 1st, I haven't seen very much done. I know there's a lot of promises. The noise monitoring with another airlines coming, it's really imperative that we get that up and running. I know that it takes, so much to do it. I don't know all the technicalities to get it up and running, but it needs to be done. I can go there because it doesn't sound very nice, and sitting here listening to people talk, I want to be a little bit respectful. Not that it was disrespectful, but we need the air filters, and I need to know how far away from the airport the noise transmission is, or the noise for the homes to be, we're trying to separate. We're losing our Quiet Tuesdays. It's really disappointing. I know you guys are all for Breeze and Avello being here together, but they compete against one another. What happens if Breeze outdoes Avello? Isn't Avello the financial backer for expansion? And what happens if one puts the other one under? Who's going to be left footing that bill? Mr. Picard, it's not good to see you here again. I'm sorry to say. It proves that cronyism is alive and well, and it kind of makes me sick. That was the root part, and I apologize. I'm not sure why there's even a tweet board, and I kind of take that back because I can see what everyone's part is here. But it still seems like no one really cares about the community underneath the airport. Mr. Cavalier, you are condescending. I sent you my first text last week. I cannot believe how condescending you were. It blew my mind, especially since I've been very cordial and trying to find some kind of middle because I live here. you've mentioned all these things that you've done for the community, but I don't hear anything done for the residents that live here. Besides going to the church and eating some fried clams or whatever. And they better not put parking over there because it's a school over there. The kids already have to listen to
30
the
seconds
airplane.
left.
Filling in your valley with breeze sounds so nice and fairy tale like. Have you forgotten about the people outside your fairy tale sounding valleys? You know, those who live right outside that you speak of. I'm also gonna have to start a prayer train for the parking at St. Bernadette. Nathan Hale School is right there, and that's when I'm being kind of repetitive, so. But you were fresh, Mr. Cavalier, I don't appreciate it. Try to be a little bit more cordial or less condescending. I didn't like it. And that's it.
Thank you.
I have had good experiences in the past, you know, with communication. It's not all bad, but we have a long way to go. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening. Any further comment? Any further public comment?
Yes, we have one more.
Okay. Online? Who we have? Jules? Hi, good evening. Name and address, please.
Jules Scanley, 485 Lighthouse Road, New Haven, Connecticut. And I'd like to make one comment. Allowing a airline that's demanding to come here is different than courting airlines and giving them incentives to come. And I'd like to know what incentives were given to Breeze. And I'd like to say that in the Q&A, I asked that question and it said that it was answered. It was not answered. And I have a question, direct question for Tom Cavalieri. I believe I heard you say that you spoke with East Shore Management Team. Is that correct? Please say.
We're not answering questions, sir, but we can get someone back to you.
Well, if I heard correctly, I think you said you communicated with East Shore Management Team, or ESMT. I have
a member of in reference to our conversation.
Right, you spoke with a member of the team of the team. You did not speak with the whole team. You emailed with me as a private citizen, not as part of the ESMT. If you want to speak to the whole team, you contact me. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening. Any further comments, public comments online or in the room? Yes, hello. Please state your name and address.
Good afternoon, Vincent Pirelli, Wilmington, Delaware. It's been a while since I spoke. I'm looking forward to the runway and terminal improvements like a lot of folks are. I would hope in regards to the new terminal that Connecticut Transit and Yale Transit can provide service. I'd like to see probably a roundabout at the entrance. I've seen it works quite well at the Queen Beatrix Airport in Aruba and at White Plains. I would hope community engagement would work closely with the real estate industry in New Haven, so far as making sure newcomers coming out to the area of the airport are better informed. We really have to break the cycle of newcomers becoming airport opponents, guys. Also, I'm looking forward to the authority and Apports entering into negotiations with the Carrefour administration is exactly what East Haven wants or what they expect. I think it'll be very productive for both sides. And I think I pretty much covered everything. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Anyone else online, Felipe? Yes. Okay. Michael Giordano, good evening. Name and address, please.
Sure, Michael Giordano down in Juno Beach, Florida. Hello, my tweet fam. I'm just responding to a previous commenter regarding flights over the Yale Bowl recently after midnight, a few times that the person quoted. Just remember to all that the airport is open 24 hours a day. There can be flights, general aviation and commercial, landing during those time periods unless the airport's closed for some reason like weather or snow removal or whatever the case may be. The voluntary agreement that Velo and the airport did that was publicized a couple years ago was for Velo not to schedule any departures before 6:30 in the morning. That's schedule, so they can schedule flights right at 6:30 in the morning and beyond, and not to schedule any flights after departures after 10 p.m. They've done that 100% of the time. Now, that doesn't mean they can't start their takeoff roll or do whatever before 6:30 for some reason, maybe weather, or they have to get out for a air traffic control restriction or whatever. Those are voluntary agreements based on schedule, not operation. So therefore, in the evening on flights that are running late, the agreement was no flights scheduled after 11 p.m. They've done that every time. That doesn't mean flights won't land after 11 p.m. Last Sunday night, there was quite a few that did because of weather up and down the East Coast that impacted every airport, not just Tweed. So just word's got to get back out to the community. It's based on scheduled flights, not operated flights. They do their best to operate them in the same time frame, but it just doesn't always work in our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Any other visitors in the queue?
We have one person that is there, but they already spoke.
Great. How about in the room? Any other public comment in the room? Any other public comments in the room?
Can I talk again?
Sure.
I just want to say that the last East Shore management team, I did ask for Andrew to be able to attend the East Shore management team meeting to answer questions for people, because who better to answer the questions than someone who works for the airport, instead of all these people guessing on what's going on. But I was voted down. So they took a vote, they said no, so no to Andrew, and I apologize for that, because it's just gonna, nobody will ever find out the truth. Sorry.
Any other further comments? You wanted
to say if we're doing two, around two, that was a personal.
Oh, is there someone online?
Yeah, the person already went, but do you want them to speak?
Yeah.
Sure, but.
Yeah. Hello.
Good afternoon. Thank you again,
ahead.
Gabriela Campos from James Street. I have a quick question. I'm glad to know that there's less flooding happening. It was definitely problematic for the staff and passengers, and just the area and the ecology of the area. We know from videos and film that there was dredging that happened. I know from an inside source that there was dredging that happened last year to allow for some prevention of flooding. I wanted to know where the permits were for that. That had not come up in any of the meetings that I recall. And I think that those permits need to be made available to people so that we can be aware that these things are happening. So just curious as to how that process came about and who signed off on it and how that works. Is, to my understanding, when it's a wetlands, there's a process that needs to be followed, a state process. So I just wanted to raise awareness about that in hopes that you will be forthright and share those documents with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. In the room? Any follow-up?
Well, I guess that's flexibility. Speak again. As you know, yeah. This is very much where I grew up. This is very much personal and objective. I don't know if that's a contradiction, but this is about safety, and it is about concern for the residents. If I speak directly to, we all have the same vested interest. We're doing our job. I would be the first to say no flights before 8 a.m. if it were up to me. My observation with 30 years in this industry is there are a multitude of experts, professionals that work at different levels, and I could not manage an airport just because I fly an airplane, but I've made it my endeavor and part of my experience and training to understand. the issues faced by Jeremy, Felipe, and staff, I'm more than happy to share what goes on literally behind a bulletproof door. It has nothing to do with angry neighbors, by the way. It has to do with other realities. To the point that I'll be a nuisance to my company and hopefully not be terminated. I'm going to see to it that I'm on one of the first, if not first flights into New Haven. I'm going to see to it, well, we have 137 seats. That'll fit a lot of people. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit the entire neighborhood. I'm all too eager to share in excruciating and painful detail at times that you'll probably have enough information for a lifetime. I wish to volunteer and will do so as a liaison rep to explain many of the things, many of the phenomena that have evolved over the internet and things that are utterly just simply reprehensible. This is about passenger safety, and things that are speculated online, while I can't control, are tantamount to graffiti, and they have legal implications as well if they get out of hand. So I'm here to talk. I don't believe in keeping things secret. It's all about being upfront, and I'm happy to share. Again, the things I've heard are news to me. I sense almost a feeling of civility, and I want to keep going with that, but the things that I can reference over the years that I've heard, I'm hesitant to share. But I'm going to be very involved, and maybe I will make some enemies on the board too. But this is objective for me. It's about flying the airplane and representing the needs of my passengers, my crew, and myself, which directly benefits here. And yes, to reiterate, airports are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is one of them. That's not a violation of anything.
Yes, I'm gonna close it off, Mr. Reed. Lorena Venegas, 73 George Street. Thank you.
Please.
I do want to let you know that this board member here is expired. Okay, she has already served too many terms, and it's just been our first responsibility.
So why don't you step
to
up
make
close
sure
to
that
the front of the
she-
board instead of standing behind a board member for me? Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah, so I do appreciate you for bringing light to the RFPs as I was closing off my last statement, that I didn't get my friends like Alicia, you know them, you know the women who have breweries and the men who work real hard in New Haven to establish those breweries, and they didn't get a shot here. And no matter what people think, or they think of me, or they think of expansion, they should have had a shot here. And I will be filing a formal complaint through the state, because every person deserves an opportunity, despite what they think of me or what I think about the airport. It's very important to have women representation in every board and commission. And, you know, I've worked in a lot of boys clubs my whole life. And that's why I always bring about that, you know, we need women represented in all ways and in all tables. I have a East Haven representative, Linda Hennessy, but she's mute. She hasn't spoken for months at this board meeting. And Mayor Carfora should replace you. You have conflicted interests.
Please continue to address the board, not the
Sure.
board member, please.
Yeah, and then I wanted to bring up the fact that all of our public comments for the last 6 months, a lot of people and a lot of residents have given great questions, but we don't have the answers in those FAQs that you said. They're simply not there. So we need a way for these questions and public comment to be transferred into documents for real answers. So we can create a feedback loop, and then that would help her with her meetings in the neighborhood. We don't have that right now. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. Any other further? We have another in the queue. Thank you. Maureen Moore, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to put on record that as going forward with the project, that I will be very involved as an elected representative of my union to make sure every employee of Tweed will be union. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Felipe?
Should be it. I don't see anybody, no hands up on online.
All right, great. With that, thank you for the public comments. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second? We have a second.
Second.
Second, Serena, thank you very much. With that, everyone, have a good evening.
If you will.